Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here, and let's talk about the Simpsons episode, No Good Read Goes Unpunished. I picked this episode to review because a certain controversial thing happens in it. However, upon actually watching the episode, I realized that, honestly, pretty much all of it is garbage. It's a really bad episode, and although that certain moment is pretty awful, there's a lot of really bad moments in this. There's two storylines going on in the episode. The lead-in is that Marge is upset with the family for constantly watching TV and being on their tablets and wants them all to start reading books again. After trying desperately to find a place that still actually has books, Marge picks out a book that she wants to read with Lisa because it was a favorite of hers as a child, and Bart picks up The Art of War to use it as a strategy to get back at his father for not letting him go to the Minecraft parody convention, which I'm just going to be calling Minecraft and Minecon because I can't be bothered with these stupid parody names. Even though the episode will probably be more well known for Marge and Lisa's plot, I'm going to talk about Bart and Homer's first because it is technically the A-plot, the one that gets a little bit more focus and attention in the actual episode. And although it's not as obviously bad or controversial as Marge and Lisa's plot, this story is pretty awful in and of itself. So in theory, I like the setup here. Bart using the classical Chinese book, The Art of War, to get back at Homer. The parts where he's interpreting passages in the book in unique ways to mess with Homer are fun, but sadly, we don't get enough of that. Bart does a few things, and then we break the war so that they can all go to the Minecraft convention parody. Which, I mean, come on now. It's not like Minecraft isn't still popular, but the game has been around for years and has been parodied to death, both on YouTube and on TV. Just a little bit too late on the bandwagon there, Simpsons. Not only that, but there have been countless convention segments on the show over the years, so not even that part is fresh. Usually, they put these at the beginning of the episodes because it serves as just a bunch of gags without much actual plot, and then it leads into the episode from there. But this one comes towards the end, after we already had the opening set piece of them looking for bookstores. The Minecon part just serves to eat up time and doesn't actually relate back to anything, aside from it just being a place that Bart wanted to go. And the jokes about the convention are groan-worthy. There's these two characters up on stage that are supposedly the best players in the world, even though that really doesn't make much sense in the context of Minecraft unless you were playing some sort of PvP map or something. And one of them says that their username is Tunnel Rat. The other one corrects him and says, no, actually, I'm Tunnel Rat. But like, what is the joke here? Is it that these online game personalities are dumb? Is it that their usernames are boring? Or is it just some weird absurdist humor? Whatever they were going for, it doesn't make sense and it's not funny. And I know I'm harping on the one joke, but this sort of joke is just way too common with current Simpsons, where you squint at it and you can't even tell what they're trying to make fun of because it's so bland and uninspired. I mean, say what you want about Rick and Morty referencing Minecraft in 2017, at least they did it better than The Simpsons did in 2018. Oh, and I almost forgot, Daniel Radcliffe is in the episode. He shows up at the convention for pretty much no reason. And he does exactly nothing. It's not even like the joke is that it's random that Daniel Radcliffe shows up. He's just there. He says a stupid line about him having to come in disguise because he's so famous, and then that's it for him in the episode. I mean, come on, guys. I know you have to throw a celebrity into every single episode, but at least make it make sense. If only there was a better place in this episode for Daniel Radcliffe, a guy known for playing a very famous literary character. Surely putting him in the Minecraft section makes a lot more sense than putting him at the beginning of the episode where they're actually in a bookstore. I mean, how inept can you get? So at the convention, the only thing that actually happens is that Homer asks Milhouse how Bart seems to have the upper hand against him, and Milhouse mentions that Bart has been using the Art of War book, which prompts Homer to use the book as well, which seems like a perfect way to resolve the conflict and have more fun shenanigans. But the issue is that doesn't actually really happen. All Homer does is imitate Ned Flanders for the rest of the episode in an attempt to annoy Bart, which isn't a bad plan in and of itself, but it kind of throws away the book concept that they had earlier in the episode. And it's also weird because Homer doesn't seem to actually have any trouble imitating Ned. Like, okay, sure, Ned would obviously get on Bart's nerves, but at the end of the day, he's Homer's rival. So I feel like we should have seen Homer struggling to act like the guy he hates, instead of just him happily dancing along with Ned. There's not even a hint that Homer is having trouble acting like the guy he hates with a passion. And as such, it just doesn't really feel right for the character. And Milhouse's betrayal is never mentioned again either. Like, they could have used that as a way for Homer and Bart to have truce to go against the real enemy, being Milhouse. Or heck, even Ned Flanders if you like. This story started out strong, but everything after Bart tortures Homer just feels not well thought out or elaborated on. Like they just switch gears all of a sudden. Here's a suggestion. Instead of Homer copying Ned, there could have been some advice in the book about using what the enemy loves against him or fighting him on his home turf or something. Have Homer become a popular Minecraft personality in order to cringe Bart to death. Because I mean, after all, what is a 10-year-old's worst nightmare? His middle-aged father becoming an internet sensation. Or, how about you have the entire third act take place inside of Minecraft? Have Homer attempt to blow up Bart's fortress in-game. You could even have it be a cross between Chinese-inspired architecture and the voxel design that Minecraft is so known for. And you could make the stuff in Minecraft play out like actual combat in the episode. It would be a way to make the Minecraft stuff actually tie back into the story, and could have been a fun and epic climax that takes place inside the video game. But no, that would have involved actually knowing something about Minecraft, which the people making this show clearly did not. So what you have is a decent idea in Bart using the book that just gets completely muddled and ignored as the episode goes on, in favor of pointless guest stars, weak parodies of games that have been out for ages, and Homer uncharacteristically having no problem imitating Ned Flanders. It really felt like they just tried to throw a bunch of things at the wall to see what stuck, but none of these things are given enough time to be elaborated on. Homer as Ned Flanders is kind of an interesting concept, but because it comes so freaking late in the episode, and like I said, we don't even see Homer struggling with it, it's just another thing that's not elaborated on enough to be actually good and entertaining. So, let's talk about the B story, the one you're probably waiting to hear about. Honestly, much like Bart taking inspiration from The Art of War was a good initial premise, Marge reading a book to Lisa that she has fondness for and has good memories of, only to realize that the book is actually really awful, isn't a bad setup either. I like this idea because it illuminates a very familiar feeling for a lot of people. A lot of times you'll go back to something that you loved as a child only to discover that it's really not what you remember it being, either because you're more critical of it as an adult and you didn't quite realize as a kid how awfully written it was, or because of cultural progress that makes certain things seem really old-fashioned and inappropriate by today's standards. And the episode has Marge grapple with whether it's still appropriate to read this to Lisa, and coming to terms with how her own feelings and memories are misguided. But the episode comes to a grinding halt in the dead middle, where the characters stop and look directly at the audience and try to deliver a message relating to the recent controversy about the character Apu. If you don't know, a few months ago a documentary came out from an Indian guy who was criticizing Apu in The Simpsons, saying that the character is a racial stereotype and is perpetuating a lot of the stigma towards Indian Americans. Marge basically ends up censoring the book, and Lisa says that with her heavy censorship, there really is no point to the book anymore. I'm going to read some dialogue to you from the episode verbatim. Marge says, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" And Lisa says, "It's hard to say. Something that started decades ago and was applauded and inoffensive is now politically incorrect. What can you do?" And Marge says, "Some things will be dealt with at a later date." And Lisa says, "If at all." And Marge gives this little nod while they both stare directly at the camera and there's a picture of Apu in the corner. Here is my issue with this. It is a cowardly response. This was not the right way to address the controversy. My issue isn't with what their stance is, it's the fact that they have no freaking stance. Their statement amounts to, maybe we'll do something about Apu at some point, but maybe we won't. I mean, look, it's fine if the people behind the show are still trying to decide if they want to change Apu or if they believe he's racist in the first place, but why have the characters in the show say this? Why address the criticism in the show if they aren't going to agree or disagree or even have some other interesting opinion? You might be thinking, well, Pie Guy, don't you like nuanced opinions? Don't you like it when people try to see both sides? And I gotta tell you, I absolutely do. I personally think that this situation is complicated, and there is no easy answer. The problem here is that this is not a complicated or complex response. It's not some middle ground answer. It's literally a non-answer, which would be fine in a press release saying, hey, at this time we're still considering if it's okay to keep using this character. But it's not okay to derail the episode to deliver a non-answer in a really stupid and jarring way. Like how the characters look directly at the camera all sad, like they're really trying so hard to elicit sympathy and sincerity, but it just comes off as preachy, which is odd because, as I've stated, they have nothing of value to say on the matter. Apu only appears in this episode as a photo in a frame and as a slight background cameo gag in the Homer and Bart story. If they really wanted to actually talk about the subject in an interesting and honest way, they would have included the actual character in the story, or at the very least would have made it the A-plot. If the writers have some sort of complex opinion on the issue and they want to seriously tackle it, then they should have gone all in on it and tried to make an actual powerful statement instead of this cowardly like, I don't know, maybe he's racist, maybe he's not racist, and even if he is, maybe we should or shouldn't do something about it, I don't know. The level of subtlety we get here is characters looking straight at the camera and delivering a speech. So it's on par with most things Simpsons related these days. Look, if you want my opinion on the matter, I think people have legitimate concerns, but I also think that Apu is a pretty iconic character, and changing him or getting rid of him would do the show a disservice. I just don't think there is necessarily a right answer here, and I think the conversation in and of itself is a good and interesting one to have, but if you're gonna have it in the show, you have to actually tackle it, not just have it be some weird tacked-on speech. Okay, so all of that aside, the rest of the actual story in regards to Marge and the book just kind of goes nowhere. Marge and Lisa go to a college to talk to professors to find out what they think about the book, and they claim that the book is okay because it's actually a parody, and the person who wrote it was actually a big progressive icon. Marge asks them if they actually believe that, and they say, mostly, in a way to suggest that they don't really believe that. And they definitely don't believe all of it. Marge asks them how they deal with analyzing literature and figuring out what's racist and what's not in today's society, and they tell her they do it by drinking alcohol. Once again, reinforcing that the people behind this episode actually have no stance, and if you want to take this in the worst possible way, it's the writers telling everyone involved to just stop caring. But even putting aside what the writers are trying to tell us with this episode, the actual story here is just so lame and weak. It just doesn't go anywhere, and after they deliver the speech, the storyline almost feels like an afterthought considering how much focus Bart and Homer's plotline gets. Let's do a little math here. It takes 6 minutes for the actual story to pick up after we get through the intro, the couch gag, the itchy and scratchy marathon, the family looking for bookstores. It's 6 minutes in that the characters pick up the books that are actually relevant to the episode. And then the last minute and a half of this thing is filled up with a random, unrelated, silent film, and then Ned Flanders coming out and singing directly to the audience with all the characters in the episode waving, followed by the credits. Oh, but hang on, we also have to take another minute and a half off because that's how much filler there is in the Minecraft parody section before we get to the only story thing that actually happens there, where Milhouse tells Homer about Bart's plan. Meaning, this episode has 12 minutes to tell both Marge and Lisa's story and Homer and Bart's story. Yes, if you took out the filler, The Simpsons could legitimately be an 11-minute cartoon. And while that's plenty of time to tell a story, it gets really cramped when you try to tell two different stories. The padding here is just ridiculous. Time that could have been spent fleshing out these stories and making them actually interesting is just filled up with pointlessness. If there's one nice thing I have to say about the episode, it's that I did enjoy the very opening set piece of there being an itchy and scratchy marathon on FXX, just like The Simpsons had their big marathon. I found it particularly funny and ridiculous that Krusty is apparently live hosting this thing. So yeah, ultimately this episode is incredibly cluttered, and just doesn't seem to have a real point or stance. I've seen some people interpret this episode as the writers giving a big middle finger to those who care about the Apu controversy and to those who believe the character to be racist. And I can see where these people might get that idea. The Apu picture does have "don't have a cow" written on it, as if to say that the Apu controversy really isn't a controversy and it really isn't a big deal and he's not racist, don't worry. But if that was their message, why did they say that some things may be dealt with at a later date? And why say that some things created in the past are now seen as racist within today's context? If their message truly was, no, we don't believe Apu is racist and we are never going to change him, then they did a really poor job at presenting that. And I wonder if the episode was intentionally written as vaguely as possible so that both sides of this controversy can interpret that the writers are on their side. And I'm gonna even be cynical enough to say that the only reason they're addressing it at all is to just drum up more controversy to get more views. After all, the only way I even knew this episode was a thing is because someone posted that clip of Marge and Lisa on Twitter, and I wanted to know what the whole context was before I said anything about it. But I don't know, maybe that's giving the writers too much credit. Also, and I know this is minor compared to everything else, but why isn't this episode called The Bart of War? Oh, wait, whoops, they already used that one in season 14. Well, that's not confusing. Anyway, what did you think of this episode? And what do you think about the whole Apu debate? Please try to keep it civil in the comments, but do share your opinion. PIEGUYRULZ,